Hi, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. We're really excited to have you here.
Hello, good afternoon. I see that people are introducing themselves in the chat. That's great.
That's perfect. So this is our agenda today. We're going to go through a really quick introduction to who we are and what we do. And then we want to focus our conversation on immigrants in the workforce and how we can rethink ESL instruction to better meet the needs of immigrants, refugees, and speakers of other languages, helping to prepare them for the jobs of the future and jobs that have the potential for economic mobility. And then at the end, we want to talk about how to make sure we're building models that we can measure the success of so that we can really build things for scale and replication. So I'm Katie Nielson. I'm the founder and chief education officer of EnGen, which is a public benefit company. And our whole mission is to remove English as a barrier for immigrants, refugees, and speakers of other languages. I've spent the last 25 years working with language learners in the United States and abroad, helping learners get the English skills they need for their real world goals. And that's what we do at EnGen, really focusing on helping create tighter connections between English as a second language learners and their career pathways. My PhD is in second language acquisition. I've worked in adult education for a long time, and I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about all of this and to be with my colleague, Tad Wamester, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Tad Wamester, Director of Partnership Development at EnGen. So I have the pleasure of working with all different types of organizations, from libraries to community colleges and employers who are helping English language learners connect with career pathways. I am an adult educator by training and really respect the work that all of you do on a daily basis. I've been part of the EnGen team for about 3 years, coming up on, helping organizations that are looking to leverage this English for Career Pathways tool that we have. And I've been working with immigrants and refugees for about 15 years, a wide variety of different programs from refugee, language learning and upskilling to work with highly skilled immigrants who have professional backgrounds and helping them to get relicensed and restart their careers. So really excited to have this conversation today. I want to encourage you to put questions in the chat, or you can utilize the Q&A. I will be watching those, and we'll make sure to elevate your questions. But let's get started. We've got a lot to cover today.
Great. And yes, please put questions in the chat as we're going, because we want to make this as interactive as we can and really get at the questions that you have. So I wanted to start off with a few statistics. The first one is that 37,000 Afghan refugees are here or on their way. And another is that workers without English skills earn 15 to 25% less than those who speak English, even with bachelor's degrees and credentials from their home countries. The final one is that by 2030, 97% of net workforce growth is going to be immigrants and their children. And all of this is a way to say that one of the things that Tad and I have both been hearing is that enrollments are down in adult basic education programs, and ESL students aren't taking classes anymore because of COVID. And that doesn't mean that they aren't there and that they don't need instruction. And so what we really want to encourage everyone to think about today is how to leverage technology to meet these language learners in a way that helps them efficiently and effectively. Because nearly 1/4 of workers in the manufacturing industry alone is aged 55 or over. And we are going to need a lot of people to do these manufacturing jobs over the next decade. So we need to be thinking about how to offer preparation for careers in manufacturing to English language learners. And another field that's seeing unprecedented need for labor is healthcare. So we had a healthcare worker crisis before COVID-19 turned everything on its head, but the pandemic has made it significantly worse. Right now, we are facing a shortage of healthcare workers, and we're also looking at 6 in 10 healthcare workers saying the pandemic has burned them out and is making them think about leaving the profession. At the same time, we are seeing a real need for bilingual healthcare workers. And if we can look at our community of language learners, immigrants, and refugees as a resource with an asset, they all all have at least one language that they speak that isn't English, and think about upskilling them with English, we can create a community of care that actually reflects the community that it's serving. The future of work is here. This is a list of the top 10 jobs with the projected growth rate and what we're going to see over the next, I think it's 25 years. And those fields are renewable energy, healthcare, and data and technology. So when we're thinking about building resilient, flexible learning programs for adult learners, we need to be thinking about programs that will prepare our learners for these fields. And there is a national focus on reskilling and upskilling, but we are excluding immigrants and refugees. There are more than 9 million jobs for the 8.4 million unemployed adults in the US, and there are 2 million highly skilled immigrants in the United States who are either unemployed or underemployed. We know that English is the enabling skill for integration and opportunity, but the US only reaches 4% of our adult learners. So there is an enormous opportunity here for adult educators to reach more learners and give them skills that can translate into careers. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, because we know that we have a gap between traditional ESL programs and career training. And what we want to talk to you about today is how we can address that gap. How can we figure out how to get learners from here to here? We know that investing in employees' English skills not only enables incumbent workers and job seekers for promotion and advancement, it helps improve workplace communication, productivity, and engagement. And the workplace is a real opportunity for adult educators to find learners who have a real need for English, as well as an employer willing to sponsor them to get those English skills, because they're critical for diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are lots of HR and workforce leaders who see the benefits of upskilling employees with English, but they struggle with where to start, which is where adult education can come in and help create programs that actually meet the needs of the workplace and the workers. It's important to keep in mind that learning a language is learning a skill. It's not studying a traditional content area. And what this means is that we need to approach it in a different way. We need to give learners practice with the language they need to do whatever it is they want to be able to do, or they need to be able to do. It needs to be relevant to their needs and their goals. There are really 4 requirements for language learning that any language program needs to have. Input, learners need examples of the language that they're learning. They need output, which means they need to be able to produce the language themselves. They need interaction, so they need to communicate with other people, and they need feedback. So when we're thinking about using technology to build a workplace-focused English program, we have to make sure we have those 4 elements. Task-based language teaching is the most effective approach to adult language learning. It uses relevant, contextualized content from the real world, so learners see right away that it's working, and they start to use it right away. Now, whenever I talk about using technology for English as a second language learners, the first objection I get is, but my learners can't access technology. They don't have computers. They don't have email addresses. And this is some of the time true. National Skills Coalition did a report in 2020 saying that 40% of English language learners didn't have any digital skills at all. But that doesn't mean that we use that as a reason not to use technology to meet their needs. It means that we have to start at the beginning. So we have mobile online training to help learners get digital literacy skills using mobile devices that they already have and that they're already familiar with. We have comprehensive digital literacy courses. And we integrate English with critical technological skills so that we're not only giving learners English, we're giving them the skills they need to look for careers that will require the use of technology, because these are the career pathways that are going to get them into jobs with the potential for economic mobility and that won't become obsolete by automation. So building in digital literacy is critical to a program that is, as I said before, flexible and effective. So what are these better models? How do we do this? There are 4 sort of main models that we want to talk about, and all of them have a role for adult educators. The first is workplace ESL, which is where I said at the beginning, there are huge populations of language learners who need access to English that's specific to their job roles. Another are bridges to careers or academic pathways. So this would be within an adult education institution, creating a bridge that gives learners the content that's specific to the career or academic pathway that they want to be able to pursue. One that Tad and I love to talk about are pre-apprenticeship English programs, ones where we give learners the skills they need in English in order to be able to exceed in an earn and learn program like an apprenticeship. And the final is integrated education and training. It's important to remember that fundamentally, English is a tool that we use to accomplish something else. None of us go around thinking about the fact that we're speaking English. That's just what we do. And we do it to do all the other things we need to do all day, every day. So when we integrate English into skill building and other kinds of training, we're essentially getting a twofer. We're using English. We have to use English to teach, and learners are gaining valuable skills that are relevant to their jobs while they're learning English. The reason that this works so well is that it's effective and efficient. It offers personalized instruction. We measure learners' engagement. It lets us move learners rapidly into real workforce development programs. We remove barriers of space and time, and we provide on-ramps to career development and training programs. All of those models rely on this approach to language learning. And so if I wanted to get, let's say, a workplace English program started, I would need to answer a bunch of questions. I'd need to answer things like, what is the job role of the learners who need English? What's their language level? And why do you want them to learn English? It's the right thing to do so they can perform their current role better, so they can become eligible for promotion or advancement, become eligible for further training. This is the kind of checklist that an adult educator would use with a workplace program in order to get a program underway. Also, what do they need to learn? Are these learners who are in roles that require lots of reading and writing in English, or speaking and listening, or all four, or a different combination? What resources are available for English learners, and what model is going to work best? Is a workplace-based model going to work? Is there a partnership with an adult education program where learners do some work on site and some work off site? All different models can be successful, but this is sort of how to get one started.
Hey, Katie, I had a quick question.
Yes.
So why is flexibility so important in workplace literacy programs? You know, whether you're thinking about a healthcare or a manufacturing environment, it's just some examples.
So flexibility is important. With one of the things we found with the pandemic that we knew beforehand, but it is made crystal clear, is that adult learners need flexibility because there are a lot of demands on their time. They need to be able to learn at a time and a place that's convenient to them and that works with their schedule, that works around their need for caregiving and transportation requirements. And so a program that is flexible is also really helpful when we're talking about language learning, because as I said before, because language is a skill, it's something that we should teach in a competency-based way. We should let learners make progress when they have the language skills to progress, and not artificially hold them back because they haven't attended 3 evenings per week of class for 12 weeks. So flexibility takes both of those things into consideration, and it lets you work around the needs of employees in different settings. Like, we know for a fact that there have been many failed workplace ESL programs in manufacturing contexts because people working in manufacturing cannot stay after a 12-hour shift to take a 3-hour ESL class. It's exhausting. They're not mentally ready for it, and they want to leave. They've been there for 12 hours. But if they can do 15 or 20 minutes of work a day on a mobile device on the days they don't have that shift or at a time that's convenient for them, they will do the work and they will improve. So building in flexibility and an opportunity for learner and worker agency is really important to successful programs.
Thanks, that makes a lot of sense. There was a question that came in, sorry to interrupt, and it is an interesting topic to explore. It was around healthcare jobs and how many of the entry-level roles are low wage.
Yes, that is an interesting topic to explore. I mean, we could have a whole webinar for a long time about entry-level wages and what we as a country need to do about appropriately compensating learners with wages that can pay family sustaining salaries. I will say that entry-level jobs, though, in fields where there is the potential for movement up the career ladder are better than entry-level jobs where there's no potential for movement. So helping learners get the skills and the English skills they need for an entry-level position is great. And then they need to continue to be able to access training and development so that they continue to grow up those ladders.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And what we've seen in a lot of healthcare environments is that learners do need to test at that intermediate or high intermediate level so that they can qualify for some of those incumbent worker training funds, and then connect with those stackable credentials that will allow them to achieve wage gains.
Exactly. And, another thing when we're thinking about frontline workers and entry-level jobs, and we're thinking about immigrants and refugees, this is a population that can't advocate for itself very well because the population doesn't have English skills. And so by enabling this group of workers and learners with English skills, you're starting to give them the tools that they need to advocate for better pay, for access to more training opportunities, to access to opportunity in general. English is not the only factor that limits immigrants, refugees, and speakers of other languages, but it is probably the biggest gating factor, and the one that if we remove opens up and unlocks a lot of opportunity. Regardless of the type of program that you're setting up, we found over the years that there are 7 requirements for a successful English program. You need an internal champion. This is when you're building something that's with a workplace. I'm not talking about an English program that's at an adult basic education center where clearly the instructor is the internal champion, but then it's harder to find clear pathways for learners out of that program into job roles. When you're thinking outside the box and about working with local employers to help upskill their workforce, somebody at the employer needs to care that this works. Somebody needs to want the workers to participate, because everybody needs to have some stake in the success of the program. They don't need to do a lot of work, but they need to exist and care. And the second really important factor is a needs analysis. Like, we can teach people a lot of English, all different kinds of English. We want to make sure we're giving them the English they need for career advancement, or for workplace communication and collaboration, or workplace safety, or honestly for preparation for a standardized test that's gating them from taking part in a WIOA-funded career development opportunity. We need learners. We need to make sure that those learners have been identified and that they understand what the program is and what the objectives are, which goes to point number 4. We need objectives. We need a provider, funding, and success metrics. The success metrics piece is super important, because if you can demonstrate that your workplace English program is actually not only enabling a population with English skills, but also helping them with their professional development and career development and economic mobility, you have all the tools you need to get funding to replicate that at scale. So I wanted to go over a few examples of successful workplace programs.
I have one.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
going to jump in with one question, because I think
Yes.
it's timely, and it's related to workplace English programs.
Perfect.
And would it make sense for different workplaces to focus on content-centered vocabulary specific to that industry? Would that incentivize organizations to provide funding for these types of in-house programs?
So yes, the short answer is yes, that workplaces that can offer training with sector-specific content and vocabulary are what we're looking for. The truth is that building those programs is incredibly labor intensive. This is my 3rd time today that I've been asked this question on different calls on different topics. And I think yet another thing the pandemic has made very clear is that yes, we all can teach online, but building effective online courses isn't easy, and it isn't what our teachers are trained to do. You are not web developers, you aren't back-end engineers, you aren't graphics designers. You know how to teach, but you don't know how to build interactive activities that can adapt to learners' needs in real time. But we do have tools that do that. So using a combination of a content provider that can offer that sector-specific vocabulary and tailor training materials to the needs of a workplace, with an adult education provider who can offer in-person, virtual, or in real life on-the-ground support, is really the magic combination that can create these workplace programs that are truly effective. Because if a particular group of educators decides that they want to offer, let's say, English for advanced manufacturing, it's going to take you a year or two to create that content, to figure out what to include. And that's just, you should be teaching and you should find somebody who has that content, which is what we do. This is why I built my platform and my company, because I've spent 25 years working in adult education, seeing that this isn't a problem that we can solve school by school and program by program. We need to invest in really high quality materials that are extensible and adaptive and meet learners' needs, and then implement them with educators who can help make sure that learners understand how to access them, get their questions answered, apply what they're learning. Did that answer the question, Tad? Do you think? I might have gone off on a tangent.
I think you covered it.
Okay.
I got a yes in the chat.
Great. So this is an example from the University of Maryland. And I love this example because they're an educational institution, but this particular example is of the university working on upskilling their residential facilities workers with the English skills that they needed, not only to access further training and development, but to access the tuition benefits on campus. And it was so successful, they've extended it to faculty and staff across the campus community. And the whole goal was to get their frontline workers the English skills that they needed in a flexible way. So you can see some statistics about this program. Learners were completing even more content than was prescribed for them. They were all improving their proficiency over time, and they were able to do it in a flexible way. So some learners were using the platform at home only and on the weekends, and others were taking advantage of some release time, but they didn't have to leave their jobs to go sit in a physical classroom for a certain amount of time, which was the model that it had replaced. This is another example, and actually there was a case study of this program that just came out today in online, and I will share it with you all afterwards because it's so great. But for years, Taziki's Cafe has offered our platform to frontline workers, and they are seeing that workers who start in the back of the house with limited English proficiency are moving into positions like kitchen manager and assistant store manager and general manager, because they're getting the English skills that they need to be promoted within their workplace.
And Katie, I did just put the CLO article in the chat if anyone wants to read more.
Yeah, it's a great case study. This is an example of creating an on-ramp to an existing career training program. So Emily Griffith Technical College in Colorado was using the EnGen CNA certification pathway as a way for learners to demonstrate readiness to move into this career program. And learners were using the platform as a way to demonstrate readiness to move into multiple career programs, which is a way of really tailoring the English skills that learners need to the career training program that they want to get into. Tad and I also love to talk about this partnership with the Peninsula Regional Education Program, because learners here are in almost like an ESL boot camp, where they're working on English language related to different career fields. Some of it is in person, some of it's online. It's all very self-paced. It's a combination of an adult education provider using our content so that learners can work on their own pace at the content level that's appropriate for them. And then they move into career certification programs in partnership with the local community college. So when we're talking about models that work, this is a really great bridge program that gets learners from an adult education program in a flexible way into the local community college.
It's really true that the prep program has been leveraging self-study, which a lot of programs don't necessarily think about how they can provide their learners with opportunities for a lot of self-study on their own time.
Yes. This program with Advance at Lake Tahoe Community College is another one that I love, because you can see how specific it is. So one of the jobs with family sustaining wages in Lake Tahoe is as a ski lift maintenance technician. And there's an apprenticeship program there that wasn't able to accept learners who were English learners because they didn't have the technical vocabulary that they needed to succeed in that particular program. And this partnership with Advance, we actually created an introduction to ski lift maintenance technicians English program using the content from the actual ski lift maintenance technician training materials to get learners the language skills they needed to participate in this apprenticeship program. So it's a really like a focused language pre-apprenticeship model. This is another example of an employer working with a local adult education provider, hospital employees getting the English skills that they need, not only for promotion and further training in the hospital, but in other career areas as well. So the HR manager at this particular hospital points out in this quote here that I love, that creating these opportunities to upskill and support our employees is one of our ultimate goals. So when I said you need an internal champion at the workplace, you need someone like this. But an adult education provider can do the work of helping to get the learners what they need. But you need somebody at the employer who cares that the learners are getting this training and development opportunity. And what I like about this example here too is you can see that learners were seeking out English content, not just on the policies and procedures related to the hospital that was their employer, but also on healthcare careers in general, on academic English, on employee safety, on the hospitality industry, on other professions. So learners were clamoring for English content to help them prepare for future careers. And here are just some examples of learners who use our platform and how much progress they're able to make. This was after 6 months with learners in frontline roles for a large retail employer. 80% of those learners were able to save time at work as a result of improving their English. 53% reported job skill improvement at a 4 or a 5 on a Likert scale. And 28% had received a job offer or a promotion in that 6-month period. And you can see that the learners themselves, the learner quotations here speak for themselves. And this illustrates the need to collect this kind of data. The 7th point on my list of things you must have for a successful workplace program are some way of measuring outcomes, because you have to be able to show that it's working. So we're going to talk, we've explained the context for why this is important. We've talked a little bit about the need for helping immigrants, refugees, and speakers of other languages get access to English skills. And now we'd really like to tell you a little bit more about our platform and how it works and why it works. And I'm going to turn it over to Tad.
Thanks. Well, I actually have a couple more questions for you.
Oh, great. Happy to answer them.
So one, can you speak to what it takes to retain and support students with self-study, persistence, etc.?
A lot. So learning a language is one of the hardest things that we ask adult humans to do. And learning a language on your own via self-study, I've spent a lot of time looking at that, and it doesn't work very well. Learners need support, but that doesn't mean that you can't use a program that includes self-study and that's flexible. Learners just need to know that somebody cares that they're doing it, which means they need, like I said, a boss or a teacher or somebody who's paying attention to whether or not they're using the platform, the ability to get to a live class or a virtual live class or office hours to ask questions, goals and reasonable goals for their lifestyle. So, if you're working in a program, in an ideal program that's competency-based and learners all have access to a platform to learn English, it's great if learners can make an individualized study plan for themselves. Like, I'm going to use the platform 5 days a week for at least 10 minutes each time. And that's all they need to do, because that might be what works for one learner. Another learner might have 3 days a week and an hour each time, but helping learners learn how to learn, like the coaching piece of this is important. You can't just take a population that's been historically ignored, say, here's some self-study materials, have fun, because we know that's not going to work. But that doesn't mean that you need to bring them all into a classroom and teach them the words for apple and banana and book and airplane and like the names of the animals at the zoo. There's a new way of doing this that uses self-study materials that are adaptive and flexible and tailored to learners' needs, and also offers support and wraparound services that help learners succeed.
Thanks. Okay, I'm gonna give you a bit of a tour of the EnGen platform. So give me 1 second. I want to take a step back and just remind everyone, what is EnGen? As Katie shared, we have that mission of breaking down barriers to English language learning. And I think the impact there is increasing equity and access to opportunity at scale. We do this through a personalized learning experience, and it is personalized by level, by native language, by performance, by career goals, and interests. And learners get to access the content on whatever device they have access to. So it is fully functional on mobile devices. We have iPhone and Android apps. It's optimized for tablet and Chromebook and laptop. So really whatever device someone is using to access the internet, they can access EnGen. Not only is the platform easy to run and has been used by thousands of very different types of organizations, but we provide hands-on customer success support. So we help you as you are building out new blended and virtual programs, understanding how to fully take advantage of the functionality of the tool and the content, that those career pathways that exist in the tool. We have literally dozens of career pathway courses covering different industries, from manufacturing to healthcare to technology and retail customer service. And all of those courses are developed from real-world authentic materials. And I've heard customers really say that this is a big differentiator. It's not outdated or inauthentic materials. You know, they're seeing current event materials, technical training materials, employer training materials that are transformed into language lessons. And you get complete visibility into your users' your usage data. So you can see what lessons, units, and courses are being completed by your learners, what their scores are in the end of unit assessments, and a long-form proficiency assessment. You can get that time on task data so that you can report these proxy hours, because the students are putting in important and very valuable self-study times. You want to make sure that you are counting that. I want to actually jump into the platform and give you a bit of a tour. So we are in, obviously, the web interface, but all of this functionality is available on mobile devices. You will see some Spanish on the page. That's because I have this learner's account set to Spanish as a native language. And this allows the keywords to be translated into the learner's native language. You'll see that it keeps track of the learner's study time. This is, of course, also tracked in the administrative tool. There's a proficiency assessment. This learner is at the intermediate level. You can set a learner's proficiency level if you use another outside assessment, or you can use the included proficiency assessment as a pre and post test to really understand what level that learner is at. You'll see there are 3 courses. This learner seems to be very interested in the manufacturing sector. They're in that English for HVAC, English for manufacturing, and also the safety pathway related to the certified production technician credential. But we have a massive content library. And I want to show you that there are currently 81 courses in the catalog, ranging from general English courses, beginning literacy, to advanced English. We also have test prep courses that can be put to use, academic readiness courses in different focus areas, beginner business skills, and this is something that can be put to use, again, related to digital literacy and workplace readiness. Beginners can learn English while they're learning about email and phone calls and meetings. And we also have all this content at the intermediate level, where we also add remote work and negotiation. And we do have a full business English course that covers a wide variety of topics. There are airline careers, English for the automotive industry. This is a brand new course that was launched just about a month ago. Certified nursing assistant at multiple levels, English for customer service in different contexts, that digital literacy pathway that focuses on those basic computer skills. And all of this can be accessed on a mobile device. Someone can learn about using a computer and setting up an email address while they're using a mobile device. Entrepreneurship, food and beverage. This general industry safety course was developed directly from OSHA training materials. So this can be used as an on-ramp to an OSHA safety training that will allow learners to connect with advancement opportunities in many different workplaces. There are also allied health pathways for career exploration. Some of these very basic topics like allied healthcare, basic life support, CPR. The manufacturing sector is one where we've really focused and have English for manufacturing, as well as these 4 courses related to that certified production technician pathway. English for patient care. This is a more advanced allied health career pathway course that can support learners who are pursuing a patient care technician role or medical assisting role. English for personal financial literacy, pharmacy tech, and the list just goes on and on. We typically have been adding 1 to 2 courses every month. And I also want to show you another area of the catalog. This is the real media section. So this is where learners can search through the entire EnGen catalog that has, I believe, over 30,000 lessons in it. And you'll see that we are constantly publishing new lessons. This was launched 7 hours ago, 18 hours ago. So we are creating some content for emerging literacy learners. But you'll also see that we're creating a pathway for electrical, and there are other current events information, current events lessons. So learners have the ability to find content that relates to their interests, that's up to date. They can also use the personalized units section if they're interested in communications or the environment. The platform is going to serve as a recommendation engine and will find lessons that are at the learner's proficiency level and have something to do with the environment as well. Every piece of content in the EnGen platform is tagged by topic area, proficiency level, and this allows those recommendation engine functionality to work. And then as learners are completing lessons, all of the vocabulary words that they're working on are tracked in the platform. So they can review those, they can see the definition, they can see the context. I remember this word abnormal was being learned in the context of an abnormal pulse rate. So this is a lesson from that CNA course. Learners can also translate directly into their native language, words or phrases. And all of this information is tracked in the administrative tool. The last thing I wanted to show you is one option that EnGen has. We have our digital self-study licenses, but we also have licenses that include access to 24/7 live instruction. So learners can find small group classes at their proficiency level any time of day. There's a prep lesson associated with that, a topic, and they're going to get hands-on practice with 4 to 5 learners at their proficiency level. This was a very quick tour of the EnGen platform, but I do want to invite you, if you're interested in a more in-depth tour of the platform, we're happy to do that at any time, so just let us know. And we also do weekly demos on a regular basis.
Yes, and we had a few questions that came in. One of them is, do we have the program in Vietnamese? Yes, that's actually, we have translations for 67 languages, and we have 18 with the entire platform. All the navigational instructions in Vietnamese is one of those. And then there was a question about cost. Tad, how do we normally answer those?
Well, our cost does depend on whether you're a nonprofit organization or a corporation. We do have nonprofit and educational pricing. It is dependent on volume as well. So if you're interested in a quote for your specific program, please reach out to me and I'm happy to share with you some pricing options.
Yes, so there was a question about Dari and Pashto, and yes, those languages will be in the platform fully functional with full translations by the end of the year. And there was a question here, which is actually a great segue to the next part of the presentation, which is, do you collect any data regarding how successful your lessons are in helping people get into jobs and into fields like CNAs? So we collect as much data as we can possibly get our hands on to try to figure out what's happening with learners once they finish using our platform. A lot of it is dependent on the partner organizations making data like that available. We love to partner with organizations that want to track career placement outcomes, because our whole goal is to show that investing in upskilling with English will improve economic mobility for language learners. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to let, Tad take back over, but there's one more question I'll answer before I do that, which is, what about young adult learners? And the answer is yes. The platform works really well with learners who are basically over the age of 13. We have some examples of very successful high school age programs, and we have learners using this in community college preparation programs. Anyone who wants more information about how we work with younger learners should just send me a note. We'll put our addresses in the chat, and I'm happy to connect you with other organizations that have used this with that particular population. Another question, is the program equally able to serve skilled immigrant professionals and people exploring new career fields for the first time? Yes, it is. So one of the reasons I built the platform the way I did is because one size fits all approaches don't work for ESL. As a practitioner, I will never forget sitting in a class that I believe was called ESL 201, Great Paragraphs. And I had in that class a dentist from Mauritania, a doctor from Saudi Arabia. I had two women who had never been in a classroom before, who were refugees from Central America. And then I had 20 other people who fit into one profile or the other. And I just remember thinking about my dentist from Mauritania, and he was working as a security guard and a taxi driver, and he was spending his own money to sit in my ESL 201 class at night because he wanted to get a job in allied healthcare. I built my program for him because learners like that should not have to go into debt to sit in classes that will never help them, when there is a technology-enabled resource that could help him get the English skills he needed to at least get a job in a career related to healthcare, where he could then work on his English skills and figure out a related credential. So we work with highly trained foreign professionals, and we work with learners who have zero literacy in their first language and in English. The platform is built for everyone, and we can offer professional development for adult educators to help you work with learners with different requirements and different backgrounds, because that's the biggest piece of the puzzle when you're trying to upskill a workforce with English skills. All right, now I was going to talk about something else. There might be more questions. Tad's in charge of the questions now. I'm going to go back to my presentation. All right. So this is the command center. This is just to give you an idea of how we collect data. We track every single thing that every learner does, how much time they've spent in the platform, how their skills are improving, what they've done, what lessons they've completed. This can also be used by educators as a teacher tool in order to differentiate instruction for your groups of learners. I'm not going to show you this video, but we can show you the command center at a later time. But I wanted to just come back quickly to remind you why the workplace is an ideal environment for English upskilling. One is because training is tied to real workplace needs. Learners get what they need right away. Another is that lessons are engaging and relevant and motivating because learners see that they can use the content right there at work. That whole input-output interaction, that happens in a workplace when learners have the skills they need to communicate. And learners can leverage what they're learning in authentic experiences. We can track everything they're doing, and they rapidly develop English skills. And we measure that. So when I think about a language evaluation program, for any program really, but definitely one that's technology mediated and distance learning focused, we need to be able to measure these four things. The first is time on task. How much time have learners spent in the platform? The second is mastery of language and content. We need to make sure that learners are improving their proficiency, that they're performing well in achievement tests, and that the instructor feedback is giving an indication that learners are improving. Satisfaction is a really important metric to measure. We want to make sure learners are satisfied, their employers are satisfied, their teachers are satisfied, their bosses are satisfied. But the most important one is real world success. we want to make sure that learners are able to use English to do something else. So we do that. We do that with an impact report that we put out biannually, and we're collecting the data right now for our second one of 2021. This was based on a survey that we sent out to about 5,000 learners at the beginning of the year. The one we're sending out now is going out to about 20,000 learners, and we're trying to ultimately match that to data from their employers and their sponsoring organizations about things like pay raises and promotions. But what we found is that 88% of the respondents said the platform helped them with their real world goals. Things like communication with colleagues, getting job offers, getting promotions, getting pay raises. You can see some quotations from learners on the left. And the same thing with their integration goals. 90% said EnGen helped them achieve their real world social goals, things like civic engagement and advocacy, helping family with schoolwork, improved community engagement, completing daily tasks. Like, we asked learners, did this help you? And they told us that it did. So to summarize, there's a massive disconnect between ESL programs and career-focused English. We have an untapped talent pool of immigrant and refugee workers. Employers want to upskill their workers with English skills, but they need help. And career training programs have to be tailored to the needs of English language learners. All successful workplace programs link learning to real-world practice. And despite the fact that there might be some stumbling blocks getting started, especially with learners with low levels of digital literacy, we need to use technology to offer flexibility as well as the data that can improve efficacy and outcomes, because personalized adaptive instruction is really critical to learner support and success. So that's all that Tad and I have prepared today, but I bet there's some questions.
There was one question about how long on average does a course take?
And the answer always is that it depends. It depends on learner starting proficiency level. It depends on what their goals are. I'll say that with learners who are true beginners, we see them make meaningful progress in 3 to 6 months. They might not get all the way to the intermediate level that they need to get into a, for example, WIOA funded training course. And we see learners who come in as sort of high beginners, low intermediates, get the language skills they need in 6 to 12 months. So I would say anywhere from half a year to a year and a half, depending upon learners' level and their needs.
Good answer. There were some questions about correlations to US standards like TABE Class E, CASAS, etc.
Yes, we have those. We've mapped the proficiency bands that our platform will put students into to the NRS, and we can share those mappings with you.
I like how the session's been very interactive.
I know, it's great.
Thanks for questions, comments. I do want to encourage all of you to continue this conversation. You can request a demo on our website, and we'll go into much more detail about the platform as well as the administrative tool. I'm also putting a link in the chat in case you want to participate in one of our weekly demos. There you go. Patrick also put the demo link in the chat. So again, we look forward to continuing this conversation, exploring how you can support your language learners of different proficiency levels and different career goals. And we're very excited about how adult education can build partnerships with employers for upskilling their workforce.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I hope everybody has a great day. That was an awesome presentation, and I hope you have a great rest of the week.